Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company on a Titans Monday, 440 Sports. That's your home at Stillman and Co. on YouTube. Like and subscribe. If you're somebody who likes this program, who watches this program, and you are not yet subscribed to this program, what are you doing? Go like and subscribe. And I do think that it's still in the infancy stages, but we're going to be coming up with a little new thing on our YouTube channel called the Stillman Shorts, where all of a sudden, instead of, a big take that's had on the show or whatever, it's going to be quick 1-2 minute takes. So it's going to be on TikTok. It's going to be on YouTube Shorts and so on and so forth. So like and subscribe. And I've been looking at the podcast numbers. Again, for me, the YouTube stuff is what I'm kind of focused on and when I'm focused live, but I've been looking at the 440 podcast numbers, and it's crazy to see when some of you people listen to this show. So I'll just say the podcast downloads for Postgame Live last night were absurd, and we will be out by 3:00 today Central Time because we're going to get this podcast uploaded for people on their drive home and so on and so forth. So let's get into a little Titan Monday presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. You know this program is always presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They won a game! The Titans won a game, and they were happy yesterday after the game was over, and you were happy yesterday after the game was over, and I was happy yesterday after the game was over. Last night, after Postgame Live, I was over at my parents' house. I was eating dinner with my parents and Lindsay and Jack, and I was talking to my dad about the game, and we were talking about how nice it was to not have to talk about how the team is 0-5 and that for at least a week, the Titans do not have to be the butt of the joke, the embarrassment of the National Football League. And considering that the National Football League is the single biggest entertainment industry in this country, you are not the joke of America for at least 1 week. The stinky, stinky Jets can be the joke of America because you won. And good for Callahan. He's a terrible coach. He's on borrowed time. But hey, at least he got to enjoy somebody else completely puking the ball game away. So good for the Titans. Good for the Titans coaches. Good for the Titans fans. Good for the city for a week. But at the same time, I think we need to be a little honest about what happened yesterday. Because apparently some people think that this means way more than it actually meant. If you think what happened yesterday, the wildest and craziest fourth quarter I've seen in a long time, if you think what happened yesterday changes anything, I hate to break it to you, but you're dead wrong. This is the same football team that for the first month of the year, every Sunday afternoon, you were prining your eyeballs out. And they were that same football team for the first 3 quarters and 3/4 of the fourth quarter yesterday. I mean, Titans Twitter was just apoplectic. I mean, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. Titans Twitter was a complete cesspool, and Titans Twitter is a cesspool, but Titans Twitter, I mean, they were so down on the team for 90% of the game. And then they won the game, and now it's supposed to be, oh, it's all good. No. This is the same horrible coaching staff that doesn't know the rules. The quarterback was great in the 2-minute drill, which was good, but he still finished with a QB rating of 64, and he was so inaccurate. Balls in the ground, balls on the fingertips of guys because it's too far out in front, throwing the ball behind a guy, throwing the ball too far out for Julius Chestnut. That's probably a touchdown. Missing Chimray DK on a couple of bombs down the field where DK was open. Cam Ward was not great. I saw Dan Orlovsky had a tweet where he said the tape was incredible. I'm like, for 80% of the game, Cam Ward was awful yesterday. So that win doesn't really change anything. Big picture. Maybe it changes something big picture come draft time where you're picking third instead of first because you finished 2-15 instead of 1-16. Yesterday was one of those goofy, verkakta NFL wins that you can't really explain. And last year, the Titans had a win just like this win yesterday when they went on the road in November to Houston, played horribly, and won the game. And they won the game because the Texans were a total mess at the time on offense, completely crapped the game away. And in the end, after the Titans were so high and mighty for winning at Houston, they went to Washington, got beat by 500, and Jeffrey Simmons is like, yeah, maybe we were a little too hungover from that win. And I'm like, oh my God, hungover from beating the Texans in a game in which you threw a pick six and you got lucky that Kayemi Fairbairn, a very good kicker, missed a 28-yard kick? So let's not act like yesterday's win was anything that it was not. It was nice to have a win. But as far as the takeaway that they won and now they're on their way, and I saw Callahan's video in the locker room after the game, and look, Callahan can say whatever he wants. He won a game, and for Callahan to be talking about, now we're worried about stacking the wins. I'm like, now let's worry about not getting your ass kicked for the first 3 quarters of the game so that you can have a close fourth quarter in which you can make some plays to win. That's what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, it's nice to have a win. It is nice to have a win. That I am going to give you. It's nice. The only real takeaway from the game yesterday, and I mean real takeaway, where you watch Titans play and we see what happens and it's like, okay, this might mean something going forward. And I think is worth discussing is the question of how much does it matter that Cam Ward was electric in the 2-minute drill yesterday? And I'm not totally sure what the answer to that question was. Because Cam doesn't have a lot of problems when it comes to his game, but he has a very important problem with his game, and that very important problem is his accuracy. And he was inaccurate yesterday. And his only touchdown throw was actually on an interception. But then in the 2-minute drill, they managed the clock well. He took what the defense gave him. They did not get overly aggressive trying to win the game on one throw. Cam hit the big throws he needed to over the middle to Chigakonkwo. Again, taking what the defense was giving him. And then the throw down the sideline to Ridley, which was a big boy NFL throw. That was taking a look at the coverage, seeing it was man-to-man, seeing the leverage that Keitrell Clark had on Ridley, knowing, hey, this is where I'm going with the ball. This is where Ridley's going to be. This is where I need to put it. And Cam put it there. And I watched that and thought, if Cam can be that efficient in the 2-minute, surely Cam can be more efficient and more accurate the rest of the game. So let's take what he did in the 2-minute drill and let's try to build off of that. That's the one takeaway I had from the game yesterday where I said, okay, let's take that and let's try to put that into next week against the Raiders. I don't think we can bank on the Raiders dropping the ball at the goal line or the Raiders snapping the ball when the quarterback's not ready into his helmet and picking up a fumble, or the Raiders intercepting a pass, fumbling it into the end zone and you falling on it for a touchdown. So the only real takeaway I have from yesterday's game was, again, Cam Ward in the 2-minute was electric. But at the same time, I don't want to get too far out in front of this. I don't want to make too much of a big deal, because when Will Levis had that comeback win in Miami, I remember the next day, it was technically a Tuesday because they played Monday Night Football, but on a Titans Monday, I remember saying, see, this is the proof that Will Levis can do it. Not that he will do it on a consistent basis, but that he can do it. And now we know that Levis has it in him and that it is possible for Levis to lead 2-minute drills and to be a potential franchise quarterback. And we know how that story ended. So I'm not getting hot in the pants over the 1-2-minute drill because it's already happened. And at the time, people said, Jared, what would you rather have? Would you rather have Levis succeeding in the 2-minute drill, or would you rather have the 5th pick in the draft instead of the 7th pick in the draft, which means you would have ended up with Joe Alt instead of J.C. Latham? And as much as at the time I said, hey, it was important for them to win, it was important for Levis to win, in hindsight, I'd rather have Joe Alt. So the moral of the story from yesterday, here on a Titans Monday, is that you as a fan, enjoy it. They, the team, they should enjoy it. Be happy about it. If I was Callahan, there's a couple of things I would have done if I was Callahan. Number one, if I was Callahan, I would have given the team off today because Victory Mondays have not been very common around here. And as far as the big picture, yeah, there's a lot of things they got to clean up and film they got to watch. But if I was Callahan, I'd be giving them the day off. I'd say, you guys have earned it. It's Victory Monday. See you Wednesday. Let's get ready for the Raiders. And the players went, yeah, because they love the extra off day. Then, and I assume they got home pretty late last night because they were flying from Arizona. But if I was Callahan, tonight, I'd be taking my wife out because I don't know how many more times you're going to get to do this, Brian Callahan. And I'd be going to the nicest steakhouse in town and I'd buy whatever the fuck. And then maybe do a little bit afterwards. That's your business. But the big picture, one fourth quarter in which the Titans won because they voluntarily gave up their own touchdown, or I guess Arizona voluntarily gave up their own touchdown. They fumbled an interception in the end zone for your touchdown, and the kicker made a 29-yard kick by the skin on his ass. That doesn't really change how I feel about the Titans or where they stand, or in all honesty, the game as a whole. It was a bad game. They played poorly. They stink. There doesn't change much, but hey, it's the NFL. And in the NFL, it's all about the win or the loss, and they won. So that's what I would do. First, before we get to the game balls, and you know that if you are a Stillman and Company listener, you know when the Titans win, and they haven't won a lot of games, we do the game balls. We divvy out the game balls. Who deserves them? Again, Floyd used to say, one offense, one defense, one special teams. Every now and then, you can pull the everybody gets a game ball thing that the coach does in the locker room where after the game is like, everybody gets a game ball and they all go crazy. Today was not that day. So I have 3 game balls. We'll do it like we always do. First, though, I want to tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, the presenting sponsor of this program. You know I love Hiller. You know I use them at my house. They've been in business since 1990. They are family-owned and operated. With 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be or the service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work performed, they will make it right. Learn more at happyhiller.com. Professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians come into your home, leave it clean and better than they found it. Care is their core value, and they believe that when they care about others, everybody will win, which is why they take care of the customer on every job, every time. And I know this because I use Hiller at my home. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Do like I do. Go to happyhiller.com. Proud supporters of the Nashville Predators, the Vanderbilt Commodores, and the Tennessee Volunteers. Hiller, call the Hat-Face Truck today. Okay, game balls. If you are familiar again with this program, you know the rules. And the rules are when it's time to give out game balls, 1 on offense, 1 on defense, 1 on special teams. That's it. We're not out here giving 19 people game balls. So I had to think long and hard about a couple of these. Game ball number 1, Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, 5 for 131, including what was essentially the game-winning catch, where he beat the defensive back in press coverage off the line of scrimmage. Cam put his hand up in the air, and Cam put a beautiful football out there for him. Calvin Ridley had 5 for 131. They threw for 265 total. He was half of the passing game himself. He gets a game ball. And Calvin Ridley's been through a lot of shit this year with the drops. So to see Calvin Ridley have the big drive on the touchdown drive in the fourth quarter that got him back in the game, and then to have the big catch on the drive that won them the game, Calvin Ridley gets a game ball. Number 2, defense. And I don't think there will be any question about this one. Jeffrey Simmons gets a game ball. Now, for me, this is more of kind of I don't want to say lifetime achievement award for the season, but this is more of a season award for Simmons, who had a sack and a half, a tackle for loss, 8 tackles, 6 solo. He was the best defensive player on the field. So there's not anything there's no real line to split. The only other guy who was worth discussing would have been Cedric Gray. Simmons, bigger impact on the game. But Jeffrey Simmons has kicked that ass this year. And I don't know if Simmons has kicked that ass this year because he's sick and tired of hearing me talk about it, or Paul talk about the fact that Simmons talks all this shit. And for the last couple of years, it's been kind of a ghost. Or if he's trying to up his trade value or up his free agent value if he gets cut at the end of the year or whatever. I don't know. But Simmons has been awesome this year. And when Simmons lost all that weight, I say, here's what Simmons is doing. Simmons has decided, instead of, hey, I'm going to be the big space eater here in the middle and be a true DT, I am going to lose weight and I'm going to become one of these Chris Jones type edge rushers, where Chris Jones can line up inside, Chris Jones can line up outside, Chris Jones can line up wherever. And that's what Simmons has decided to do. And I give him credit because he's playing at a very, very high level. He gets a game ball. Again, he had a sack and a half. There wasn't a player on defense who had some sort of great play, one-handed interception or anything like that. People want to give L'Jarius Sneed credit for running down the field. I mean, that guy dropped the ball because he's a schmuck. He didn't drop the ball because L'Jarius Sneed was running him down. So Jeffrey Simmons gets a game ball, and I think everybody can agree on that. And 3 on special teams, Chimere Dike. Chimere Dike is the best return man the Titans have had in a while. I don't want to jinx it. It's like my son. People ask, how's he sleeping at night? Although lately we're having a little bit of a sleep regression here with young Jack. But people will ask about my son. My son's very easygoing as a baby. And I hate talking about it because the second I start to talk about it or the second I start to brag about it is the second he's going to become a total a-hole. And I already know. So I almost hate when people ask. So I don't want to get too excited about Chimere Dike, but he does get the game ball on special teams because he has produced as a kick returner, as a punt returner. He is the best returner the Titans have had in a long, long time. I can't even think of the last returner the Titans have had who was as productive as Chimere Dike has been here lately. And again, normally when a field goal kicker hits a game winner, they usually get the game ball, but the game winner usually isn't from 29 yards, and Joey Slye missed a PAT. And it would have been a massive PAT, or could have been a massive PAT, so I can't give Joey Slye the game ball. So on special teams, again, there wasn't somebody who forced a big play, a big hit that led to a fumble that changed the game. That there wasn't any of that. Chimere Dike has done a good job returning kicks. He gets a game ball. Ridley, Simmons, Dike, those are your game balls. Now, I am going to tell you, when it comes to Cam Ward, yesterday was a big day for him. And it wasn't just that he got his first game-winning drive, which is important. And the way that quarterbacks earn belief from their team is when they can look at a guy and say, we can give him the ball with 2 minutes to go and 1 timeout, and he can drive us down the field and get us in position to win. Whether it's a touchdown, whether it's a field goal, he knows the situation. He knows what he's got to do, and he can do it. And the only way that your team becomes confident in you to be able to do that is by you actually going out there and doing it. It's like Trevor Maddich used to always say to me, people think that confidence is a precursor to success, when in reality, success is usually what builds confidence. But that isn't necessarily why I thought yesterday was a huge day for Cam Ward. It wasn't about Cam getting the confidence of being able to come in and win a game in the 2-minute drill, although I'm sure it doesn't hurt Cam's confidence. Cam's a confident dude. And I don't think that them stinking has deterred Cam and his confidence that much yet. But I think it was really important for the team and their confidence in Cam Ward. And here's why. Because regardless of whether or not you agree with this sentiment, there was no doubt that his we-ass comments last week pissed that locker room off. Albert Breer wrote in the Monday Morning Quarterback about how after the game yesterday, he talked to Brian Callahan. And I found something he wrote very noteworthy. Quote, "What you may not know about all the honest conversations that took place behind closed doors last week that helped set the stage for Cam Ward's comeback. On Wednesday, with talk of his job status ramping up, Callahan called in captains Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, Jeffrey Simmons, Amani Hooker, Cody Barton, and Morgan Cox for an extended conversation on the state of the team. He let them air their grievances and looked for deeper investment in what the Titans are doing. He also took personal responsibility for a team that was playing competitively, but lapsing too often and allowing games to slip away. Forget about that back half. That I don't care about. On Wednesday, Callahan called in Ridley, Pollard, Simmons, Hooker, Barton, and Cox. Notice a team captain missing from that group? These aren't the Vrabel days where they don't wear the C patches. They wear them. You know who the captains are. They always talk about the 8th extra captain every week. You know, hey, this week we're going to play the Raiders, and Jared, you're from Las Vegas, so you're our extra captain today. So if they've got 8 captains, one of whom is a rotating guy, and so really it's 7, Ridley, Pollard, Simmons, Hooker, Barton, Cox, that's 6. I think what that was a let's talk between Brian Callahan and the players of a let's talk about Cam. And you may not like it. Again, a lot of people did not like the fact that Jeffrey Simmons spoke out against what Cam Ward said and Cody Barton spoke out against what Cam Ward said. But my guess is that was calculated, and that was done after Callahan met with the players about, hey, let's air it all out. Let's have a captain's meeting, but not invite one of the team captains. So let's air it out from there. Let's air it out about what that captain said. Again, you may not like it that Cam Ward pissed off the locker room, but he did. And you cannot lose the locker room. So I want you to go back to the third quarter of yesterday's game. When Titans Twitter was melting down, when people were talking about, I can't waste time watching this team on Sundays anymore. Again, before the 2-minute drill, before the win, before all the fucked up shit Arizona did to cost themselves the game, I want you to go back to that. And I want you to think about this. Cam Ward, after last week's game, calls the team ass. It went viral. Regardless of whether or not Cam was including himself in that, and I think Cam Ward was including himself in that. But it doesn't matter what Cam was saying. It matters how other people heard it. And it's obvious that the players inside the locker room felt as if Cam Ward was pointing fingers. I talked about this on Friday. I said, I'm torn by it because when he said it, that wasn't a huge red flag to me. I know this team sucks. But the guys on the team clearly took it personally. And the last thing you can have, if you want to survive in the NFL, the last thing you can have is finger pointing going on in the locker room. So go back to the third quarter Titans are listless on offense. Defense early on carved up, but so far they've held them to 21 points. If Cam Ward continues to play the way he played yesterday, when after 3 quarters, he was 13 of 18 for 72 yards. After his we-ass comments, that would not have sat well in that locker room. Again, you may not like it. You may think that they're soft. Karski wrote it last week, saying that Simmons was soft and Barton was soft because they were mad about what Cam Ward said. You may not like it because you may think that they needed a reality check or they needed to toughen up. But they took it personally. The captains of that team took it personally. And they let Cam know about it in private, but they also let Cam know about it in public. So if he calls the team ass, and then he goes out and plays 13 of 18 for 72, like it was through the first 3 quarters, 6 points, lifeless on offense, he might have lost the locker room. And I was a little stunned yesterday when we were doing Postgame Live. I was a little stunned by the fact that I saw Simmons at the podium. You know, the way the Titans have done this for years is coach goes to the podium, required by the league. Quarterback goes to the podium, which I don't know if that's required by the league, but I think most quarterbacks do go to the podium. And we've seen games where Mariota gets hurt and Blaine Gabbert goes to the podium, even though Blaine Gabbert didn't play a huge role in the game. Or Mariota gets benched and Tannehill goes to the podium. And the way that it had worked with the Titans for a long time was coach, quarterback, and Derrick Henry go to the podium. And I think that's just to kind of help with the traffic of not everybody piling around Derrick's locker and everything. And so, again, if there was anybody who would go to the podium for the Titans, it was the coach, who has to go, the quarterback, who by most teams goes, and then Derrick Henry. So yesterday, as we're hosting Postgame Live, I've got it up here where I'm looking at the press conference. Callahan gets up there, he talks. And then I look down, I see Simmons talking. And I'm like, what is Jeffrey Simmons doing speaking at the podium? Jeffrey Simmons never speaks at the podium. Why is he talking at the podium? And I said on Postgame Live, and I think I was wrong for saying this, and I have not had somebody from the Titans call me to clarify why this is, so this is just my own pontification. But I said yesterday afternoon that I guess Simmons likes going to the podium when they win, and he doesn't like going to the podium when they lose. But I don't think that's what it was. I wonder if the team decided, and I'm not talking about the team, but I'm talking about the team. When they sat down with Callahan, the captains minus Cam, and they aired out the grievances. Again, I'm not making this up. Albert Breer reported it. I wonder if they sat down and they said, you know what? Jeff needs to speak before Cam speaks, because Cam proved last week that he's not ready to be the voice of the team after the games. And then yesterday, everybody was saying great things about Cam Ward, and everybody was happy, and everybody was in a good mood, and everybody was pretending like Arizona didn't completely puke that game away. And Cam, for his part, he's not backing down from what he said last week, because in the same Albert Breer story, Cam said, quote, I just think we needed that. We needed it known how we weren't complimenting each other on both sides of the ball. We weren't playing our best. The biggest thing is that the guys in the locker room respected it. They know how I feel. We weren't on our P's and Q's on offense, and we just have a bunch of individuals that take it to heart, but in the good way, as far as holding each other accountable and being resilient. And boy, that sounds a lot better after you win a game. This idea of, hey, I said it because I thought we needed it, but because our guys care. And look at how they performed. But if they had lost, with Cam throwing balls in the dirt, with Cam missing Julius Chestnut on what probably would have been a touchdown, with Cam missing Chimere DK on some of these deep balls, for a locker room that is already upset at its quarterback, that could have been deadly. That could have been Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, when you had Baker getting into it with Odell's dad, and it could have been bad. It could have been really bad. And I would love to know just how close Cam came to losing that team. Because clearly the players were pissed about it. If they felt like they needed to sit down and talk to Callahan about it. And clearly they were pissed about it. If Simmons is going to come out and talk about it, and Barton's going to come out and talk about it, clearly they were unhappy. So when you win and lead a fourth quarter comeback, you can say things like, hey, I thought we needed that. And we as a team, we all believe in this. And we just needed a little push in the right direction. But you can't say the team is ass and then go out there and be the reason that the team loses. And Cam, until Arizona puked away the game, Cam very much yesterday was going to be the number one talking point for why they lost. Because he was awful yesterday until that fourth quarter. And he could have lost the locker room if Arizona had put that game away. So Cam needed that fourth quarter, and he needed every single bounce of the ball that they got yesterday for that win, because it might have changed the entire relationship between him and the rest of the locker room, and he might not even know it. I know a lot of you out there don't want to believe this, but I think there's a chance, and I mean a real chance, that when it comes to Cam Ward, that those players, after what he said last week, again, a lot of people applauded Cam because it's like, this team does suck. But it's obvious those players did not take it kindly. You go out there and play like shit after you talk shit, and it's not going to go well. So I'm a little surprised that Callahan even told Albert Breer that story. That the captain sat down without Cam. And so Cam, I give him credit because he needed that. Now, I want to talk about the Arizona Cardinals for a second, if I may. I understand this is not Arizona Cardinal talk, and I have no idea what they talk about in Phoenix, because Phoenix is a weird place. Like, it's a great city. And it's got a bunch of great suburbs, and it's one of the places that I would actually like to live if I didn't want to live here. Phoenix has great weather, albeit very hot. It's a very dry heat. Weed is legal there, so I like the fact that you can just go buy gummies. Gambling is legal there. And again, great climate, no state income tax. Phoenix is great. But at the same time, I don't know how many fans the Arizona Cardinals have. They seem like one of those fan bases that draws in a lot of visiting fans. I don't like yourself. So I don't know what they're talking about out there in Phoenix on the radio today. I don't even know how much they care about what the Arizona Cardinals did or what the Arizona Cardinals didn't do yesterday. But we got to talk about Jonathan Gannon and that Arizona Cardinal team. I don't watch the Cardinals. They get about 2 primetime games a year, and I passively watch those 2 primetime games. I may flip to an Arizona game when there's 3 games in the late window. One is the Cowboys in a big game or the Chiefs in a big game. And then there's always like a Jacksonville game in the late window, and there's always like a Raiders and Arizona game in the late window. And so maybe I'll flip to the Arizona game in the late window if the other games are boring or something. But I don't watch the Arizona Cardinals, and I don't think you do either. I did not like Kyler Murray when he was coming out of the draft in 2019. I would not have taken him with the first overall pick. And I still don't think that you can win with Kyler Murray consistently, though, again, I don't watch Kyler Murray, and I don't watch Arizona enough to be able to tell you yay or nay. But that loss yesterday and the way they lost, that is one of the worst quarters I have ever seen a team play in my life. That is one of the worst losses I have ever seen a team lose. And I kept watching the game yesterday, and they kept sending it back to New York for a game break to keep us updated on Tampa Bay and Seattle. And every time that they would come back from the game break with Tampa Bay and Seattle, Spiro Ditas kept saying things like, and you Arizona fans out there, you care about this one. And I'm like, do they? Like, are they really going to win that division? The division with the Rams and the 49ers and Sam Darnold, who's playing his ass off, apparently, until the 2-minute drill yesterday. And then I just watched the way that Arizona lost that game. The first 5 minutes of the game, I thought it was going to be 45-0 Arizona. The way Kyler just did whatever he wanted to do, throws the ball, bombs it to the outside to Marvin Jr. Marvin Jr., by the way, is kind of a bust. But he throws the ball and bombs it out there to Marvin Jr. And then they end up having Kyler Murray running a touchdown because Femi Oladejo is just lost out there. And yet, they ended up losing the game because they fucked up way too many times. I mean, yesterday, I want to say it was 21-6. Arizona is in scoring range, and they snap the ball, and it hits Kyler in the head, and Draymond Jones recovers the football. And I saw that happen, and I said right there, and I think I tweeted it out at the time, I said, I can't take Arizona seriously. I know they're 2-2. A lot of teams, most teams in the league are 2-2 at the end of September, and then you'll still see a 2-2 in September team end up 11-6. It happens all the time. I'm watching this, and I'm like, I can't take them seriously. I just snapping the ball right into the guy's head. No, come on now. And that was the first mistake of what was a second half of horrors. Guy drops the ball at the 1-yard line. Give me a fucking break. If I was the coach and I saw Gannon's reaction on the sideline this morning as it's kind of gone viral, I mean, if I was the coach, I might cut that guy right then and there. If I was a coach of another team, even if I was coach of Arizona, I'd be coaching guys Wednesday at practice. We're going to take the football and we're going to run all the way to the end zone, and you're going to run to that back white line before you let go of the ball. Because we're not going to lose a game because one of you a-holes thinks, oh, yeah, let me get to celebrating, drop the football, and you dropped it at the 1-inch line. And then the dumb luck of throwing an interception, them fumbling it, and you getting it in the end zone for a touchdown. That's like Mariota throwing a touchdown pass to himself in the Kansas City playoff game. It's so absurd. I've never seen a team lose the way Arizona lost yesterday. And I can't speak for Arizona because they've lost other games this year, and I haven't really watched those games. But I can speak from experience for watching yesterday. I cannot take them seriously, and I cannot take him seriously as a quarterback. Gannon stinks because, again, you never see that kind of loss in the fourth quarter happen to a good coach. That kind of loss in the fourth quarter does not happen to Nick Saban. It happens to one of these young coordinators who takes a job because they'll take any job because there's 32 of them out there, and he's got his head buried in his play sheet, and he doesn't really know how to coach, and that's kind of the new thing in the NFL. You've got one of these coaches yourself, and that only happens to that kind of team. So Gannon stinks. Murray stinks. And again, I think Harrison Jr., who everybody told me was going to be the best receiver in the league, I think Harrison Jr. kind of stinks. I mean, early on in the game, they're just throwing the ball deep to Marvin Harrison, and he's making Jalen Armour Davis his you-know-what. And then supposedly, I saw it on Twitter, I think it was Buck that tweeted this out, or TD or something, they just switched Snead on him, and we didn't hear from Marvin Jr. the rest of the day. So I got to tell you. And then I saw Next Gen Stats said that the Titans in the fourth quarter had a 1.8% chance to win that game. Ugh. Again, don't bet on Arizona. Don't bet on Kyler Murray. Don't bet on Gannon. Oh, my goodness gracious. Woo. Just brutal. Unbelievable. So, I do want to get to some of your reaction on this. We do have a couple more topics to get through, but let's go ahead and get to some of the reaction. The distinguished gentleman, of course, he's got to be up first, TDG, says the players are good with Cam. I think it's easy to say that when you win. Again, I go back to the first 3 quarters of the game, and this was not what the game was in the end. And again, it's hard to say, like, if this hadn't happened, then this would have happened, and this would have. But Cam Ward threw for 72 yards through the first 3 quarters of the game. A week after saying that the team was ass. And you think that's going to sit well with that locker room? Again, you tell me that, hey, it's all good between Cam and the team. Don't listen to this. Jared Stillman, he's full of it. And then Albert Breer says Callahan had a vent session on Wednesday last week where he invited Ridley, Pollard, Simmons, Hooker, Barton, and Cox, but not Cam. That was hey, the team is mad about what Cam said. Regardless of whether or not they should be mad about what he said, they were mad about what he said. So I'm just going to throw that one in there. Like, you can't sit there and tell me that they might be good with him now because they won. Winning cures a lot of issues now. DJ says the Cardinals acted like they were the Titans yesterday. Again, I don't watch the Arizona Cardinals on a consistent basis. I just, again, they're going to win 8 games this year. They're going to win 7 games this year. It feels like they're kind of always the same. And that's fine. We don't need them. They're not like the Cowboys or the Packers. They're not a team they're going to put on TV constantly, even if they're not good like the Chicago Bears. They're kind of like the Titans from the standpoint that if Arizona is no good, Arizona just goes away. And for the last decade, Arizona has just gone away. But I don't know how you can take a team or a coach seriously when they did in the fourth quarter what Arizona did yesterday. Person says it's fine to feel good about the win and to feel better about next week. I guess that is in reference to the Raider game. So I've always said, when you're getting ready to play somebody, in my experience, you want that somebody to be fat and happy. You want them to have won a game, a big game, in front of everybody. You want everybody to be telling them how good they are. You want everybody to be pumping their tires. And then they overlook you, and you play the game, and they lose, and all of a sudden, it's like, damn, we just were too busy being excited about that big game that we won last week that we overlooked them this week. And I will say this, you will not have that with the Raiders on Sunday because the Raiders got absolutely fucking spanked by the Indianapolis Colts. The Raiders are almost a touchdown favorite to open, which I was stunned by. Because, again, I don't watch the Raiders. Similarly to how I don't watch the Cardinals, I don't really watch the Raiders. But, man, they look like they stink. So someone's got to explain that to me. You got to explain to me, like, why the Raiders stink so bad. But they absolutely could win on Sunday because the Raiders might be as bad as the Titans. Now, Pete Carroll is a better coach than both Jonathan Gannon, who allowed you to win yesterday, and Brian Callahan, who's going to be coaching against him on Sunday. But I wouldn't rule out beating the Raiders. I just am always careful when a team gets embarrassed and you go out and play them the next week. You know, you're going to get their best week of practice and their focus and everything else. Jack says, you hate the sunshine pumping. When someone says the truth, you freak out and make up scenarios. You're moving the goalposts. That comes from Jack. So I don't know how you can say when it comes to the Cam Ward thing that I am moving the goalposts or making up a conspiracy theory. Again, Albert Breer reported it, not me. Albert Breer reported this morning that last Wednesday, Callahan invited Ridley, Pollard, Barton, Simmons, Hooker, and Cox into the office to have a group chat to air out all the grievances. 3 defensive guys, 2 offensive guys, 1 special teams guy, and there's 1 captain and 1 offensive guy missing. That guy is Cam. And you can tell me that, hey, Jared's making a big deal out of Cam's comments last week, but that didn't mean anything. But again, I heard it in live time on Postgame Live, didn't react to it. The next day when the "we asked" thing was going viral, I didn't react to it because it wasn't a big deal to me, but it obviously was a big deal to them. If Simmons had to speak out against it and Barton came out and spoke out against it, and now the captains are having a meeting with Callahan separate of Cam, and Callahan got up there and said, yeah, Cam's a young quarterback and he's learning how this works. That's not me making shit up. That's me reading the tea leaves saying, holy crap, those "we ask" comments pissed that locker room off. And then if you watch the game yesterday, and you can be honest about it, that Cam Ward was awful for the first 3 quarters. So he makes a comment after the game Sunday that clearly rubs his teammates the wrong way, to the point that they're speaking out publicly against it, and the coach is having to have a meeting with all the other captains, and then he goes out and plays terribly. Now, again, the saving grace in the 4th quarter, very good. 2-minute drill, led him to victory. So now people can say, yeah, we can win with this guy. It's great. Winning cures all. But to act as if I'm just making this shit up, I didn't make any of it up. I didn't think that the players were going to be mad about it. I see why they were. But to sit there and act like I'm making this up, again, Callahan's the one that told Albert Breer that he had a meeting to air out grievances with all the captains minus Cam Ward. I'm not making that up. Brady says, I'm confused to why you refer to the Titans as you, when you are also a fan. Well, I am a fan, but I don't consider the Titans a we when it comes to me. I don't work for the Titans. I don't get a paycheck from the Titans. I love the Titans, but I like to call it how I see it when it comes to the Titans. And with a lot of you people out there, you feel like you're a part of the team, and that's okay. I mean, you can feel that way, and teams will always say, hey, the fans are a big part of what we do. And they'd be lying if they said the fans weren't a big part of what they do, because, again, they don't want to go out there in front of nobody. But I don't consider myself a part of the team or a part of any of that, or I don't consider myself, so I always say you. When you people get too caught up in 1 2-minute drill and say, oh, we've got the guy, Jared, that's you. That's not me. So that's why I say you. I do root for the Titans. Make no mistake about that, and I'm glad the Titans won yesterday. And I got to tell you, I was like you guys. My eyeballs were coming out watching the first couple of quarters of that game. I found myself in the first half not nodding off, like I wasn't falling asleep. I wasn't changing the channel. Although at the very, very beginning of the game, I did have up the multi-view and watch the end of the Eagles and the Broncos. But I just kind of found myself mentally checking out in the first half yesterday. And I can't be the only person that went out there and did that. Jeff says, is Simmons going to have another hangover next week from this big win? Well, it was Simmons that said the team was hungover after they won last year at Houston. We shall see. Now, the good news is last year they had to go play Jaden Daniels when that happened. They don't have to play Jaden Daniels this week. Lindsay says, most negative Titan fan ever. I don't think I'm the most negative. I think I'm probably the most honest. You guys spent too much time letting Rand cook, baby, and not being objective about the team. And again, if you think that the Titans had really anything to do with why they won yesterday, you're not being objective. That was all Arizona losing the game. And hey, whatever. It's the NFL. It doesn't matter how you get there. All that matters is that you got there. But you all can be honest. So Corey says, what did Jared think of the Mike Vrabel special yesterday? And when it comes to the Mike Vrabel special, We got to hit that one, Corey. So I saw the Sunday night football game, although as I'm getting older, I am struggling to stay up for the primetime football games. But I watched Sunday night football last night, and I saw the great Mike Vrabel. And Mike Vrabel shocked me, and he shocked Vegas last night by pulling out that victory on Sunday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills. And now Mike Vrabel is 3-2, and he's got his signature win, and I've got two big takeaways. Number one, the first is that the reason the Patriots won yesterday is because Drake May is starting to look like that dude. And I'm talking about that dude that Tim Hasselbeck was convinced he was going to be before the draft. I remember when there were rumors about how Drake May was, quote unquote, falling ahead of the 2024 draft. And in hindsight, that's so silly because Drake was always going to be either the number 2 or number 3 pick. But we talked on the show at the time and said, what if he falls to 7? If he falls to 7, what do you do? And Tim Hasselbeck, who was obsessed with Drake May, was like, you take Drake May. If he's at 7, you take him. And Titan fans could not believe it. I mean, I was getting yelled at, being like, why would you take Drake May when you have Will Levis? And I'm like, what? Will Levis was a 2nd-round pick. You picked a guard over Will Levis. Drake May is the traditional standard 1-1 talent. Now, he didn't go number 1 in his draft because there was a generational prospect in Caleb Williams there, but he would have gone number 1 in most other drafts. He would have gone number 1 in 2022. He would have gone number 1 this past year ahead of Cam Ward. He probably would have gone number 1 in next year's draft, where it looks like Carson Beck will be the number 1 overall pick in next year's draft. He easily goes number 1 in a traditional draft. But because Vrabel is popular, and I think it's because of his personality, Vrabel will get all the credit. He got all the credit here, even though the team had been to the playoffs before Vrabel showed up. Vrabel will get credit for the Stephon Diggs revenge game or the Drake May coming out party because, once again, Vrabel's popular. And I even saw Sam Phelan, who used to work for A to Z Sports, tweeting out there basically, see, Mike Vrabel overperforms. This is Mike Vrabel once again. And it's almost like 2018 didn't happen when Mike Vrabel took over a team that went to the divisional round of the playoffs and didn't make the playoffs the next year. Or 2022 didn't happen when they started off 7-3 and didn't win a game the rest of the year. Or that 2023 didn't happen when they won 6 games. And Sam Phelan was like, but Vrabel overperforms with the rosters he has. And I'm like, is it overperforming? Because Mike Mularkey got fired for going 9-7, the same record Vrabel had his first 2 years. Mike Mularkey got fired because people thought he underperformed with that roster. So now you're telling me Vrabel overperforms. And this is what happens with Vrabel. It's amazing. I don't understand it. When Vrabel wins, it's because of Vrabel. When Vrabel loses, it's because of somebody other than Vrabel. I do not get it. It's amazing. It never was, hey, Mike Mularkey lost in the divisional round of the playoffs to the New England Patriots because Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. Rob Gronkowski was at his peak, and that team was a Super Bowl contender and the defending champions. No, it was Mularkey and Trubisky stink. So Drake May plays his ass off last night, and the story is Vrabel. Again, I've said Vrabel's a good coach, but he's not a transcendent coach. Drake May might end up being a transcendent quarterback, but Vrabel is not a transcendent coach. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, last night was the definition of the Mike Vrabel Special. And I'm allowed to say that because I'm the one who invented the phrase, the Mike Vrabel Special. Sunday Night Football against Super Bowl contending Buffalo. They win ugly and they win close. And now people on social media are posting the Patriots schedule. And the next two games are the Saints and the Titans. And there's a bunch of bad teams on that schedule. And people are talking about the Patriots may win 11 games. And I'm sitting here thinking, what's the deal when it comes to the Mike Vrabel special? What goes up must come down. 2018, beat the defending champion Eagles, lose on the road the next week to the terrible Bills. 2019, beat Mahomes and the Chiefs, go on the road and lose to Kyle Allen and the Panthers. 2020, beat the Bills on a Tuesday night after 2 weeks of no practice, go on the road and lose to the awful Bengals. 2021, Sunday Night Football on the road against the eventual Super Bowl champion Rams, dominate, turn around and lose to the 4-13 Texans. There was the Zach Wilson game, which might have only been the only good Zach Wilson game he ever played. That was a Vrabel special. There were games against the Bills and the Chiefs that were Vrabel specials where he pulled them out of his ass. They annihilated Tom Brady and the eventual Super Bowl champion Patriots at Nissan Stadium. That's what Vrabel does. And so I'm convinced, because I've seen the Vrabel special one too many times. I think there is a very, very good chance when it comes to that schedule of, oh, look at the schedule now, the Saints, the Titans, he's going to lose one of those two games. And it would not shock me if it was the Titans. Because, again, how Vrabel special would it be to beat Buffalo and 2 weeks later come back to Tennessee? Everybody's thinking you're going to stick a rod up their ass, and they beat you. So last night was a prototypical Vrabel special. And finally, we have got to talk about the Titans kicker, Joey Slye. I mean this with all due respect, but they need to cut him. I know they won, and I know they got to celebrate, and I know everybody wants to be happy, and I'm sure it was a great plane flight home last night. But the Titans need to move on from their kicker. And I'm actually kind of shocked by it because he looked so good in the preseason, and he looked good in the first couple of games, and then Callahan sent him out there for those super long field goals, and I guess it fucked him up. I can't explain, but this guy cannot kick anymore. And he almost cost them the game yesterday, missing a PAT. He misses a PAT when, again, it was questionable to go for it on, for two or whatever. They decide to kick the extra point. He misses it, and it's like, this dude's broken. He missed the two kicks at the beginning of last week, which would have made it 6-6 going to halftime. Again, those were two easy field goals, and he just missed them like a college kicker. And then yesterday, big PAT, he missed that. And he lines it up from 29, and there was a part of me sitting there saying, I don't know if he's going to make this 29-yard kick, guys. And he barely made that 29-yard kick. So I know Callahan doesn't like doing this because they won. And so usually when you cut the kicker, it's because, well, he cost us the game. And he didn't cost you the game. He did make a game-winning kick. But I think Callahan's got to call Joey Slye into the office and say, Joey, I think it's time for you to move on. I think it's time for us to go in a different direction. And I just have no faith in him making a field goal right now. And I know he made the game winner, but God, that was ugly. And I just don't think Callahan has it in him. And I know Callahan doesn't control the roster. I know it's Brinker and Borgonzi. But I just don't think Callahan has it in him to cut the kicker after they won. Even though the kicker was awful, almost helped them lose. And then again, that kick 29 yards and it barely got through. If that kick was from 33, he would have missed it. I think you got to change the kicker. Because what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to try to build off this win, go to Vegas next week and lose because you can't make a field goal. But I don't know if Callahan could do that because they won the game. That's it for us today on this Titans Monday. Like and subscribe. Very intriguing Monday Night Football, by the way. Jags and Chiefs. Don't know who's going to watch. Don't know who's excited. I got to tell you, I am excited to see. I don't know why. I think Kansas City's going to win. Kansas City's favored to win. Travon Walker's hurt. But I am very fascinated by tonight's Monday Night Football game. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends to like and subscribe. Tomorrow, we're live like we are every weekday, 2 o'clock, Stillman & Co. on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Your podcast is up every day on the 440 Sports Network. Just search Stillman & Company wherever you get your podcasts. We will see everybody tomorrow. Thank you to Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, our presenting sponsor for today's program. Again, enjoy the win. Not sure how much it changes things, but go ahead and enjoy the win. Stillman & Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 2.